My sister hasn't moved or spoken in 8 years. Doctors say she never will. But every night at exactly 12:07 a.m., I hear her toys moving in the dark, and sometimes a little laugh that sounds exactly like hers. I'm Mack from California. If you're hearing this, it means I finally decided to share what's been happening in my house. It's not something I can explain, and I don't expect anyone to believe me, but maybe someone out there has heard the same kind of sounds. The same kind of laughter that doesn't belong in the middle of the night. We live on the edge of town, past the last streetlight, where the fog rolls down from the hills and settles like a heavy blanket over everything. My parents both work late shifts at the hospital, so most nights it's just me and my little sister Ellie. Ellie is 8 years old, but mentally and physically she's been frozen since she was 4. A car accident left her brain damaged. She can't move, can't speak, can't react. She lies in her bed all day with her eyes half open, staring at the same spot on the ceiling. Machines keep her comfortable, and soft music plays from a little speaker by her bed. Her room is the quietest place in the world. You start to hear things in there that you're not supposed to. Your own heartbeat, the hum of the oxygen machine, even the static buzz of electricity through the walls. The first time I heard something strange, it was a Thursday night in January. I was up late, gaming in my room, when I heard something roll across the floor down the hall. A plastic click, then another, like someone lightly tapping blocks together. At first I thought it was the cat, but when I checked, the cat was curled up asleep on my bed. Then I noticed Ellie's door was half open. She never sleeps with it open. I pushed it gently. The room was dark except for the faint glow of her nightlight. A small pearl-colored shell that projects stars on the ceiling. Her toys, all soft animals and baby blocks, were scattered around her bed in a strange ring. In the middle of that ring, the old music box, one that hadn't worked in years, was spinning slowly, playing its lullaby in a half-broken tune. When I switched on the light, the music box stopped. The toys fell still, and Ellie, she was staring right at me, or I thought she was. The next night, it happened again. 12:07 a.m. on the dot. The soft melody. The sound of something rolling on the floor. This time I didn't open the door. I pressed my ear against it. I heard whispering. Very faint, then a giggle, a child's giggle, high and breathy. I whispered, "Ellie." Everything went silent. Then I heard the faint creak of her bed, like someone sitting down beside her. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I asked my mom if she'd been in Ellie's room around midnight. She frowned and said, "We didn't get home until 2. When I checked the hallway camera, the red recording light was off. The camera had been unplugged. The next day I bought a new one. I mounted it outside her door facing the hallway. That night I waited again. 12:05, 12:06. Then at 12:07 the hallway light flickered and the camera froze. The feed on my phone went black. I took a breath, opened the door and pointed my flashlight. The toys were moving. Slowly, like something invisible was arranging them. The blocks clicked, the stuffed rabbit shifted and the ball rolled toward my feet and stopped. Then Ellie's head turned toward me. She had never turned her head before. Not once in 8 years. Her eyes blinked, once, twice, then her lips moved. No sound came out, just the shape of a word I couldn't read. I shut the door and didn't open it until morning. The next few days, everything went back to normal. Or maybe I just convinced myself it had. But on Sunday night, I woke up to the sound of my own voice coming from the baby monitor. "Ellie, you need to sleep," it said. My heart stopped. The monitor was off, sitting on my desk, but the voice kept going. My voice, gentle, calm, exactly how I used to sound when I read to her as a kid. Then it said, "Ellie, come play." I ran down the hall. Her bed was empty. The sheets were cold. The machine was still running. The nightlight glowed on the wall. Then I heard it, the sound of the music box, faint and broken, coming from the attic. I opened the attic door, climbed up the steps. The light flickered on and off. Her toys were there again in a perfect circle, and in the middle of them, Her wheelchair, empty. The monitor in my pocket crackled. Through the static came the sound of a child's laugh. Then, my voice, clear as if I was standing right beside me. "You shouldn't have come up here." The rest is a blur. My parents say they found me at the bottom of the stairs, unconscious. They told me I must have fallen. Ellie was back in her bed when I woke up. But something was different. Now, when I pass her door at night, the monitor clicks on by itself. And every night, exactly at 12:07, I hear the music box start playing again. Sometimes, I even hear two voices, one that sounds like hers, and one that sounds like mine. I don't open the door anymore. If you ever hear your disabled sister playing at midnight, don't check. Because if you do, whatever's in that room might start playing with you too. And if you've ever experienced something like this, tell me in the comments. Maybe then I'll know I'm not the only one still hearing her laugh. Huge thanks to Mack from California for sharing this disturbing story with us tonight. The nights my grandma started acting like a child. I'm Joseph, from a small town outside Manchester. The nights I began hearing my grandmother laughing like a little girl. When I tell people she lives with me, they imagine a sweet old lady with knitting needles and teacups. She was like that once. She raised my mom and helped raise me. But 3 years ago, after my granddad died, she came to stay with us permanently. She was quiet at first, sat by the window, watched her soaps, fed the robins on the back fence. Then things changed. Slowly at first, so slowly we excused it as grief or age. The first thing I noticed was the smile. It wasn't normal. It was stretched, fixed, too bright for the situation. She'd drop a plate, shatter it on the kitchen floor, and then just smile at the pieces like she was proud of herself. Mum said she was coping in her own way. I wanted to believe that. But late at night, when Mum was asleep, Grandma's coping sounded like soft, rhythmic thuds from her room. I'd think she'd fallen or was moving furniture. I'd knock on her door, call her name. Silence. The next morning, she'd act as if nothing had happened, sitting at the table humming nursery rhymes from the 1950s. She'd ask me if I wanted to play hide and seek. She'd never played that with me, not even when I was little. The house itself is nothing special, semi-detached, 2 bedrooms upstairs, thin walls. I could hear everything, so when the laughter started, there was no pretending I'd imagined it. It came from her room around 2 a.m., a soft, high-pitched giggle that didn't sound like my grandmother at all. It was light, girlish, almost happy, the kind of laugh that doesn't belong in a 78-year-old throat. The first night, I thought maybe she'd left the TV on. The second I checked, her television was unplugged. She was sitting up in bed, smiling at the blank wall opposite her. Her hands rested on the blanket, fingers twitching slightly, like she was counting something invisible. When I whispered her name, she turned to me and whispered mine back, Joseph, in a sing-song voice I hadn't heard since childhood. I backed out of the room slowly and didn't tell Mum. How could I? "Hey Mum, Grandma's sitting up at night pretending to be 6. It would sound cruel. A week passed. Then came the whispering. I'd hear her voice from downstairs in the early hours, low and conversational, answering questions that no one asked. Once I caught distinct words, "Don't tell him. He's watching." The next morning she made pancakes, whistling. The kitchen smelled of syrup and something faintly metallic, like pennies. Mum began to notice too. She'd find drawers open, chairs moved, biscuits missing. Grandma said, "The little one took them. We don't have a little one. I'm the youngest in the house." The scariest night was a Thursday. Rain tapping the window, wind against the vents. I heard music from downstairs, an old lullaby. My phone clock read 2:14 a.m. I crept down, half annoyed, half afraid. The living room lamp was on, but dim. Grandma sat on the floor in front of it, cross-legged like a child in nursery, humming and swaying. In her lap was one of my old toys, a wooden spinning top I hadn't seen in years. She spun it, watched it wobble, and clapped softly each time it tipped. I said, "Gran, you shouldn't be up." She looked over her shoulder, that same stretched smile. "He said I could play now," she whispered. "Who said?" "The little boy in the mirror." I felt every hair on my body rise. There's a big mirror over the fireplace. My own reflection looked pale and distorted in the lamplight. There was no boy, just me. I told her to go back to bed. She obeyed, still smiling. When she passed me, the air felt colder. The next morning, she didn't remember any of it. She said she'd slept fine. The spinning top was on the coffee table, perfectly still. I started recording things. Just my phone propped on a shelf, motion activated. The first night, nothing. The second night, the camera clicked on at 2:08 a.m. She wasn't in bed. She walked into frame slowly, head tilted, eyes open too wide. She stopped in front of the mirror, tilted her head the other way and started talking. I couldn't make out the words. Then she began to mimic someone, her posture, her tone changing every few seconds, like she was rehearsing being other people. At one point, she crouched and hugged herself, giggling softly. When she finally lay back down, she tucked the blanket around her shoulders like a child pretending to sleep. I didn't show Mum. I deleted the clip, but not before watching it 5 times, hoping it would make sense. It didn't. Sleep stopped being restful. Every sound jolted me awake. Once I heard what I swear was skipping, soft rhythmic steps across the kitchen tile. The next day I found a line of sugar spilled neatly from the counter to the back door, like someone had drawn a path. I asked Grandma about it. She smiled, almost bashful. Did I make a mess? I'm sorry. We were baking. We? I said. She giggled. Me and my friend. I started staying up intentionally, lights off, sitting at the top of the stairs listening. The house changes when everyone else is asleep. Even the refrigerator hum sounds suspicious. That's when I realized the laughter never came from the same place twice. Sometimes from her room, sometimes from downstairs, once even from the garden. Each time I checked, she'd be back in bed, breathing slow, innocent. Mum decided we needed help. A doctor came, asked questions, prescribed mild medication for confusion. But that same night, Grandma slipped the pills into her napkin at dinner. She caught me watching and winked. "Don't worry," she said. "They don't help with playtime." That line still echoes in my head. Then came the night that made me move out. I woke to music again, different this time, not the lullaby. A tune from one of those plastic toys that plays when you pull a string. I followed the sound to the hallway. Grandma was standing halfway down, facing my door. Her eyes were wide open, her mouth forming a childish "oh," and she was humming along to that toy music that wasn't really there. Her hands moved slowly in front of her, like she was pretending to rock a baby. When she saw me, she said, "Shh, you'll wake him." "Wake who?" She tilted her head toward the dark corner of the hall and whispered, "The boy." I turned on every light in the house. There was no boy, no music, just her smiling. The next day, Mum insisted she see a specialist. The appointment never happened. That afternoon, Grandma sat in her chair, humming, smiling, eyes closed. She looked peaceful. Mum said she finally slept. I wanted to believe that. That night at 2:07 a.m., my phone rang once, unknown number, 1 second, and stopped. I glanced at the hallway camera. The motion light was on. Grandma's door, which we'd kept shut since morning, was open. When I stepped into the hall, the air smelled faintly of sugar again. From inside her room came that same soft laugh, the one I'd heard for months. I said her name once. The laugh stopped. Then from the darkness, her voice, small, bright, like a child asking a question. "Joseph, do you want to play?" I didn't answer. I closed the door. I left the house 10 minutes later and never spent another night there. Mum says she's been better lately. But sometimes when I call, I hear it in the background. The faint sound of humming, high-pitched and happy. Mum says it's the radio. I know that tune too well to believe her. If you ever hear someone you love laughing like a child in the middle of the night, even when they shouldn't be able to, don't go and check. Because once you hear that laughter clearly, you'll start to remember things you never did. Huge thanks to Joseph from the UK for sharing this disturbing story. If you've ever seen a loved one act strangely at night, tell us in the comments. If you've ever heard something moving in your house when everyone was asleep, let us know down below. Make sure you lock your doors, check your cameras, and as always, sleep tight.